Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. But in 1968, American soldiers, some of them got out of hand and did some very evil stuff to innocent people. I understand there's probably about 500 students watching this right now, and there was over 504 non-combatant innocent civilians murdered by American troops this morning. Uh, There's some literature if you'd like to read it. I think the best book out is 4 Hours at My Lai by Mike Bilton. And there's also a biography of myself out. The You have to make the right decisions in your life. You make the right decisions because it's the right decision, not because you want to be recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. Do not look for recognition when you make the right decisions because you might not get it. For over 30 years, I was treated as a traitor, a communist, a sympathizer. The only thing I was doing is doing my job. Uh, in 1998, I was given credit for stopping the My Lai Massacre. It was the only thing I could do. That particular day, I saw things that couldn't be answered or explained logically in my mind. I started uh, denial, I guess, because these were people, the American soldiers on the ground that day were ones that I was there to give my life for. I was flying a scout helicopter about 10 to 20 foot off the ground. And looking down on this, I kept seeing things that I couldn't answer. Large numbers of bodies, which I believe they showed you some of the gory pictures a second ago. Uh, I went into denial, I guess, because I couldn't believe my fellow Americans were doing things like that. So you kind of come up with solutions how this could have happened, and you blame it on somebody else. And we'd seen enough and asked for help and got people killed, I think. And I just got pushed into a corner, and I had to take action. Talking wasn't working. So I sat down between some civilians, set my aircraft down, told my crew chief and gunner to cover me. If those people open up, or if they start shooting, in other words, the Americans, I told my crew to kill them. I walked up to the man in charge on the ground, told him there were some innocent civilians hiding in a bunker up ahead. Could he get them out? And he told me he could get them out with a hand grenade. And that's when I just really came apart, I guess. I told him to hold his people right there. I think I can do better, and I've already told my people to shoot you if y'all open up. I figured that that day, right then, that I was going to spend the rest of my life in jail. But it wasn't something I wanted to do. It was something that I was forced to do. I had to do. 504 lives were taken that day, of which I think over 200 and something were under the age of 9. I tell you, think about how old you are. And I didn't consider these people my enemy. Uh, a soldier's trained to kill, but a soldier's not trained to murder. These were not soldiers that day. In my mind, I've narrowed it down to a few things that I think cause this, the main one being poor leadership or lack of leadership. Another one was revenge, because this unit had received a very revenge type briefing the night before, which uh, you don't do that as a soldier. But that goes back to the bad leadership. Prejudice was one of them. We had dehumanized the Vietnamese, and it's easier to kill something that's not your equal, I guess. And negative peer pressure. got involved. That day, well, 30 years later, I've always heard the old saying, I thought it was kind of corny, but you can make a difference. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I guess I proved you can make a difference. We're given credit for saving 11 lives that day, I think. Some scholars say we saved about upwards of 20,000 lives because that operation was supposed to go on for 4 days, hit a village in the morning, hit a village in the afternoon, and there was up to 20,000 people who lived in all those 8 villages. By our actions and complaining, the operation was stopped in 4 hours. That's hence the 4 hours at My Lai. I figured that, I was in trouble threatening to kill a superior officer, but I couldn't let that bother me or concern. I did what I thought had to be done, and I did what I thought was right. It took 30 years, over 30 years, to prove that, people now say I did right. It's not easy when you have to do something like that, but you have to get involved. Do not go along with negative peer pressure. You've got something in your side of you, your heart, your conscience, I don't care what you call it. There's something there. And if you get this little twinge that says, I don't think this is right, hey, it's probably right. If you got somebody trying to egg you on to join them into doing something you don't feel right in, that should tell you something right there. This isn't your friend. This is somebody that's too scared to do it on their own and trying to drag you down with them. Do not go along with negative peer pressure. That one guy that was involved that day during an interview, he said, boy, it was real hard killing that first baby. But the second one, it wasn't that hard. My point is, if you step over the line the first time to do something bad, it's going to be easier the next time. Then you're on a road to no recovery, and your life's not going to be what it deserves to be. You have to make choices. You have to make decisions. I ask that you make the correct decisions. I'm not that familiar with Canadian government, but we probably got some leaders that are sitting in this audience right now. We need good leaders. Your word is your bond. You have to make the right decisions in life because a life is fragile. If you see somebody, I don't know, with a crib sheet in class during a test, each one of you will probably handle it a different way, but you have to handle it. You cannot look the other way. If you look the other way, that's stepping over the line. Just like you see somebody getting mugged somewhere, you might be the only one that can help. You have to do what is right. Like I say, I went for a long time not being thought of in the goodness, and I had nothing to do with turning it around. I was happy being an obscured person that nobody knew of. But I agreed to do a documentary a few years ago, not thinking it was going to be played in the U.S. Well, it was played in the U.S. a few times, and people saw it. And one individual, Professor Egan, saw it, and he said, I wonder if that guy had been recognized. And he found out I had been recognized. I'd been threatened with prison. My life had been threatened. I was an outcast. But that's not how he wanted me recognized. So he started a one-man crusade that took 9 years to complete. And he worked on it every day for 4.5 years it was before he ever contacted me. And when he contacted me, I just said, my God, thank you. Because I've been very confused. I thought what I did, my crew did that day was right. What can be wrong with helping fellow human being. And I told him, thank you. I don't need to be recognized. You don't need to pursue this. But he said, well, he's not giving up. I said, all I need is somebody to say thank you. Because I thought what we did was right. And I've never found a military person in the last 6 years it's been going on now, I guess, that doesn't agree with me. Soldiers trained to kill the enemy. If there is no enemy, you don't murder people. Even if Hitler comes out of the bunker with his hands in the air, he's no longer the enemy, but he's a soldier's prisoner of war and should be treated as such. Do not get hung up with the wrong crowd. Make your own decisions, stand on your own 2 feet, and have a positive life. There were, like I said, 504 people. Lives wasted that day for no reason whatsoever except negative peer pressure, revenge, prejudice, and no leadership. Y'all have a lot of snow up there. And you've heard the story about the snowball rolling down the hill. It starts out real small and it gets big. You'd be surprised how fast things can get out of control. There was only about 18 people out of 190 we put on the ground that day that took part in it. The others knew what was going on, just didn't do anything to stop it. So they've got to live with themselves. It just was a bad day. And it's because of our leadership. You're going to grow up to be leaders. Leadership starts with you right now. You have to be a good one. You have to make the right decisions. I think we give you all a chance to ask any questions if you might have them.
I was just wondering if you could give a few more details about the incident itself.
Well, my job, as I said, I was flying a scout helicopter. We inserted 190 infantrymen and associates on the ground that day. The intelligence was that it was the enemy's stronghold. The only problem is the enemy's intelligence was a little bit better than ours, and they had vacated the city. This unit had received a very good briefing the night before, revenge motivated. I didn't go to their briefing, so I don't know what went on, but I've read and been told what went on. And it was go in and kill everything that moves. This is to get even for James, who got his leg blown off yesterday with the booby trap. The only reason he got his leg blown off was them following poor infantry tactics. So that was bad leadership right there. The leadership would not assume responsibility for his actions, taking shortcuts. Like I said, I was flying a scout helicopter about 10 foot off the ground, going anywhere from 50 miles an hour to standing still, out in front of the infantry, trying to draw fire so I could let the infantry know where the bad guys were. There's one problem. There was no bad guys. 504 people murdered, no weapons captured at all that day because there was none there. My crew did see a late sleeper. I guess he was getting out of the area right when we got there. And I told him to get him. He missed him. He got in the tree line and got away. That was the only enemy that I knew was there. But they got in such a shark frenzy, and nobody would say, hey, this isn't right. Stop it. Went on for 4 hours. I had to take a fuel break, and normally I was flying a scout helicopter. I had 2 gunships behind me, covering me in case I get shot at. They're going to take out whoever tries to endanger my life and my crew's life. We normally, on an operation like that, when I have to go get gasoline, call in another team, but nothing was happening. So We didn't even call on another team. We've gone about 30 or 45 minutes is when most of this happened. Because the infantry unit got up next to the village perimeter, and we came back with just all these bodies everywhere, and no explanation. That's when I started trying to figure out what had happened. Blame it on artillery or blame it on somebody else. I didn't want to blame it on Americans. Saw a wounded person, got on the radio, called for help. My captain walked up to her, nudged her, and stepped back, just put his weapon on automatic and killed her. Next time we landed at a ditch that had over 100 bodies in it. Some of them weren't dead yet. So I asked for help again, and I was told, I asked him, I said, can you help these people out? Help them out of the misery. And that's when I just told them, quit joking around, help them out, okay? They said, yep. And as we took off from there, heard machine gun firing, and Glenn Andrada, who was my crew chief that day, just came over the intercom with the most somber voice I'd ever heard, saying, my God, they're firing into the ditch. This is your own people. You can't deny what is happening. And that's when I just got very angry and says, well, I know how to stop it. I've asked for help once, got somebody killed. I asked for help again, got a bunch of people killed. Well, nobody else is going to die today. Not like that. So that's when I, just got fed up and went into, I was been told that when I landed the next time that I was screaming at this lieutenant. I don't remember the exact words, but I can guarantee they can't be televised to this audience. I was very irate. We got it stopped. They called off the mission and evacuated everybody out of the area. It wasn't easy to do, but it wasn't that hard either. Once, you admitted the truth of what was going on. I am sorry that I didn't act maybe a little sooner, because when I saw the bodies in the ditch, the little man on my shoulder says, they were marched down in here and slaughtered. Another little man was saying, no, they were running out of their houses with when the artillery came in, and they just got caught by a rocket. And then you can't stay with that scenario because every one of the houses have got bomb shelters built into them. You don't run out into the open. But it was evident. I just wish I acted a little bit sooner. We did get it stopped. There is no doubt it was reported. I reported it within 2 days to the brigade commander. And it sometime, something later, I don't remember reporting it to anybody higher, but something happened during the investigation that tells me I reported it all the way to the division commander. It did, I think, make it to the United States. And I don't know what was said, but when the word got back down, somebody either misinterpreted or didn't understand it or something, and there was a big cover-up. It wasn't made public in the United States till about 1.5 years later, at which time a guy who had been with this unit, stationed with them, but had transferred out, saw some of his old buddies and, got talking, and said, now you won't believe what we did at Pinkville. We call the town Pinkville. He said, what'd you do? So we murdered everybody. And he says, oh no, man, this is just like, look at somebody sitting next to you. How would you react to them if they told you they murdered 500 people yesterday? You wouldn't believe it. And Rod Ridenour didn't believe it either. He thought it was alcohol talking or, just talk. But he ran into somebody else a couple of days later, and he told him the same story. And he said, well, maybe something did happen. So he got out of the service, and he was a journalist. So he started trying to get in touch with everybody that was there. and he was getting the same story from everybody, most of them which had gotten out of the service. So he decided to write a letter. And he wrote the same letter to about 26 or 28 people, starting with the President of the United States on down. And at the same time, the photographer who was on the ground that day, the pictures you saw a while ago, were sold to Life magazine. So all these high influential people, congressmen, senators, generals, presidents, got this letter saying there was a massacre, and the pictures at the same time to kind of prove there was a massacre. If you look at those people, you don't see any weapons, you don't see any military paraphernalia. So then, for some reason, a bigger cover-up began because I was subpoenaed to Congress to testify and was told that if anybody spends a day in jail, it would be me for threatening to kill a superior officer. So I was kind of scared then, very much scared. So it went from there. There was a few court martials. Only one person was convicted. The rest of the people, in my mind, that should have been court-martialed had gotten out of the Army. And due to public sentiment at the time that was going on in the United States, the Justice Department did not want to pursue them, and only the military can try military people. They can't try civilians. So the Justice Department elected not to. We found out recently that if you screw up, you're not going to get away with it this time like they did at My Lai. It's just there was riots going on every campus in the United States. A whole lot of people were going to Canada. It was just something very bad. Public sentiment got involved. And I do know where part of the cover-up came from now. I didn't know it until recently because we were doing some research on a book and ran across this little document that said topic was My Lai. And he said, we might have to discredit that helicopter pilot. Might have to call in a few congressmen. I can tell you their names now. Might have to use dirty tricks. Does anybody guess where this note came from we found? You can't get any higher in the United States. How it was found was just by luck, because at one particular time the FBI walked into the White House and confiscated every piece of paper in there. And that particular president used to love to keep notes. So they didn't do it, I don't think, personally against me. They just didn't know how strong I feel American people were. And we just don't want to be lied to. And the public was being told a bunch of lies. The truth never came out because I was under a gag order by a court and I couldn't talk. And I was very afraid and scared. So I didn't do any talking. So my side of the story never came out because I didn't want to go to jail. I was trying to do everything I could not to go to jail. It's boils down, you've got to make decisions in your life. Sometimes they're going to be hard, but you know what's right and you know what's wrong. Make the right decisions because it can get out of control real easy. And once you step over the line, it gets easier the next time. Then it's just like, having a Pepsi or something or a Coke. It's just natural. You don't want to go there. You want to be productive. You got a lot of teachers around you that love and care for you. You got your parents. You got friends that truly love and care for you. They're not going to ask you to do anything wrong. I ask you to do what's right. Do what's right because it is right. Anytime you get a chance to help somebody, that makes you feel good. You might not understand the outcome, so don't do it for, self esteem or something. Just do it because it's right. I can't emphasize that enough.
Okay, first of all, I just really like to say that I admire you so much for your courage and your determination. And your story was so touching.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much.
Well, my question was, can you ever fight a war in a civilized way? Because just innocent lives are being lost at every war, and I don't think there's any right for wars to happen because it's not the right way to bring peace. And I was just wondering if there's, like you said, the results of what happened was because of poor leadership, but I just don't think there's a civilized way to fight a war, and I was just wondering how you thought about that.
Okay, I really can't think of anything good that comes out of war. Now I know I've been back to Vietnam. I'm very well accepted in Vietnam. There's still two Vietnams in my mind, just how they act. And we drop a lot of bombs and then do a lot of talking, and then we become friends. It seems to me that if we do the talking before the bomb start falling, then we can be friends also. People suffer in war, and I can't answer what it accomplishes. I have very mixed feelings about it, and I sure don't want to be in another one, and I don't want any of my loved ones or anybody I care for or anybody I don't even know be in them, because I know what goes on.
Why is there never any officers or high rank charged with these war crimes, even though everyone knows that?
Very good question. I just got back from the United States Military Academy last week, or week before last. I go up there each semester and I talk to them about doing the right thing. And I started out my talk this last couple of weeks ago. I'm getting tired of coming up here and nobody paying attention. And that's the way I feel, because there's a couple of things going on right now that might or might not be in the newspapers up there concerning Iraq. And they were West Point graduates, and unless they were asleep, I'd talk to these individuals. At My Lai, the highest person that was court-martialed was a brigade commander, who is a colonel, and let me see, I think he was not convicted, but he was tried, and that ruined his career right there, I'll tell you that. Some other people that were not tried in court-martial, but they were dealt with. One general lost a star, I know that. A two-star general was relieved of command later. So they were punished not for war crimes, but for dereliction of duty or covering the story up, you might say. They've just, and this is what really hurts me being an American, they've been trying to get together an international war crimes, and I've been talking with these people, and I see them every year or so, and they say, hey, we're making progress, but there might be some concessions have to be made. I said, oh God, let me guess what those are. You can't step foot on the United States soil. And they said, who have you been talking to? I said, well, I haven't been talking to anybody. I just know we have a bad way of pointing finger somewhere else. We don't like the finger pointed at us. I think, if what I understand right, the United States is probably the only major power that hadn't signed on to them. And in my heart, I feel that's the reason we don't want people coming here. Now, the ones that were involved in My Lai, if they were court-martialed, I do not think they should, be court-martialed again or go to any kind of court action. The ones that were not, because they had gotten out and became civilians, I wouldn't have any problem whatsoever. But it's going to be hard. You have to know a little bit about our stubbornness, I guess. But I did appreciate one thing when I was in Norway a couple of years ago. I asked the president of the International Red Cross. We were talking about something, and I just said, who in the world appointed us the police of the world? And she thought a second and says, we did. I said, why would you do that? She said, nobody else would assume the responsibility. So that made me look at my country a little differently, because I kind of thought we had gone out and bullied our way in, you might say, which apparently that's not the situation. That wouldn't bother me if we signed on 100% to the international war crimes, but I think that's going to be a couple of years coming.
Even though we know what's happened in the past, do you think that the same situation could or is happening in Burnaby today?
Very good question. From bits and pieces of information, I think some atrocities are still happening, and I also feel that we're going to deal with them a little bit differently, and people are not going to be lucky. The Abu Ghraib, I think more agencies, and I have no proof of any of this, it's just the way I feel, and I think we have more agencies than the military operating out of there. Now, I do know that who always is in command might not be in control. So I think it's not our military's position. We have certain laws. There could be other agencies that don't have the stringent laws the military have, which I think is what's happening. But yes, it is occurring. There appears to be, and court martials are going to be given to the ones in the military that caused it.
Hi, Mr. Thompson. I was just wondering that what was the best part of being a pilot?
It's fun to fly. Kind of dangerous, but I wasn't smart enough to realize that. Your aviation in all military, I think, has it a little bit better. We didn't have to walk through the mud and walk through the jungles unless you got shot down. Then you did whatever you could to get out of there. It's just a rewarding mission, I found.
My question is, do you think that the My Lai Massacre had changed public attitude towards the Vietnam War?
I think that's where our government got involved, because there was a lot of protests going on all of our campuses, all of our cities, and the massacre didn't get put out there like it should have. The truth was never made available to the public, because I think our leaders were trying to protect. It's not nice admitting what went on that day. Some people, some scholars say that was a turning point in the war. It was sure a turning point in my war. And I don't know, just, God, it's just so important not to become part of something like that and realize how much damage you can do. Our military right now is being scrutinized real close, and it's all really because of the My Lai Massacre.
And I'm wondering, have you ever met with any of the civilians you saved?
Yes, my last trip, I met with two of them that were in a bunker that we saved. The real little bitty girl and the mother. And then I also met with the kid we pulled out of the ditch. And it was very rewarding to me personally, because I certainly know I made a difference in their lives. And it was just so humbling and very teary-eyed meeting someone, and it was really self-rewarding meeting those three individuals, two ladies and a young man.
What impact has the war had on you?
Oh, that's a very good question, but I have no idea. See, I was there. I guess you would have to divide me in half and put me back in time, and one half of me not go there, and the other half go there, which happened. So I can't really say, because I don't know what I'd be like, if I hadn't had been there and experienced this. It's made me a whole lot more aware of how fragile a life is. It's made me to respect fellow human beings more. It's kind of taught me to try to be a good guy and help people. But I don't know what I'd be like or how much I'd be changed if, I hadn't encountered that. Thank y'all. Thank y'all very much.